Hello and welcome back to another episode of That Podcast. My name is Ryan Janke, and as always, I am joined by Dana Mashevsky, Pastor DJ Lura, and the Reverend Dr. Senior Pastor Paul Cross.
Yay!
Well, that was an introduction.
How was it?
Not bad.
Well, I was like, she's not going to pick that thing up.
No, she did a great job. No, Dana's side. It was fine. You know, the appropriate yaying on Pastor DJ's part. Dana's timeliness was good, and your enthusiasm
almost missed it.
Was accepted. You didn't almost miss it. You hit it spot on. You did well.
It was.
Yeah.
So yes,
You know, I just came to a conclusion here. Well,
Yeah.
no, I won't say anything. No, continue on.
Okay. Well, this episode is all about you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's frightening.
But before we get into all of that, there is a noticeable elephant in the room.
Yes.
Someone is not here.
Oh yeah.
Was it on purpose?
Well, I don't.
Or sheer accident. Just
Oh, sure.
you know, I don't believe in coincidence.
You don't believe in coincidence. You know what? One thing we do have a little housekeeping before we get to that question. Okay. Probably including last week's episode, or not even last week's, just a couple of days episode. This is a cleaner, nicer, less gory and violent sort of. What's the word
Did
I'm
Ryan
looking?
just have a stroke? I'm
No,
not exactly sure.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's going to be a lot like Pulp Fiction with these next 4 episodes
Oh, that's what you're
because
talking
they are
about.
going to be. You're going to have to listen to one to understand what the last one was, and then the last one you're going to hear about things that already happened but didn't quite happen yet because we have like 4 episodes that have been recorded, but as we record them, the urgency of one that hasn't been recorded yet sort of ramps up a little bit. And if you've seen Pulp Fiction, you'll understand what I'm saying. That's all.
You're going to have to watch Pulp Fiction to understand what you just said.
Unless you're under 18, then please don't watch it.
That's right.
I don't want to be contacted.
So what you're saying is that the next 4 episodes are like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah, because you're going to hear things like, yep, and so this episode has already come out, but it hasn't been out yet, or things like this. So just so you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mean where I broke the fourth wall?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Okay.
Breaking fourth walls?
Yes.
Looks like some walls have been broken here. They haven't been fixed yet. When was the last time I was here? That wall's not changed a bit. It looks every bit as disheveled as it always has.
Is that the elephant in the room that you're talking about?
I was talking about a noticeable absence.
Oh, sure.
Because Pastor Cross is here, and suddenly,
All of a sudden.
Suddenly I'm in the wrong seat.
yeah.
Yep. Sarah is not. She decided not to participate today.
Wow, I wonder why. Maybe it's because the unkind things I said about pumpkin spice lattes.
Actually, Sarah, today, Paul broke down, and we all have pumpkin spice lattes sitting in front of us as we record.
This would be a lie from the pit of hell.
Don't do that.
This would be a lie from the pit of hell. And yeah, absolutely. Which is where pumpkin spice lattes are from. That's
where it started.
It's where it started. This is, America has not been the same country it has been in the times past since the introduction of pumpkin spice anything.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to say right up that, the reason of her absence is that the other day I was at a certain large wholesale retail outfit, and they had replaced one of my favorite protein drinks, which is banana flavored, but they have pumpkin spice version of this protein drink.
Gross.
And I looked at Sarah, showing her the picture of this stuff, and I said, "It's because of your ilk this has happened."
That's people like you.
People like you. See, people of your ilk have brought this about. And so probably the reason why Sarah is not here is that she is still licking her wounds for my true and righteous attack on the pumpkin spice.
I hope Sarah listens to
scourge.
this episode.
I hope she does too. I have nothing to fear. Absolutely.
By the time she's back, you'll be gone.
As I said, if I have a bunch of decapitated pumpkins on my lawn, I'll know where they came from. But in any case,
No, she's just gonna fill it with like pumpkin spice cups.
Pumpkin spice.
She's gonna go buy that protein shake and then just put it in your yard.
I saw pumpkin spice spam.
What?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
They will turn anything into pumpkin spice, sir. Do not question.
The all-time favorite was I was in the capital city of Wisconsin, which is not Cheesevelia, but it's Madison. But I was in the capital city there last year about this time and visiting SMC 2.0, and she living there, getting her job done, and there was a brake shop that was offering pumpkin spice brake jobs, and I'm not making that up.
I've seen that before.
Oh gosh, I had to take a picture of that. Again, this is the downfall of America. People think it's the education system. People think it's politics. It's pumpkin spice.
Pumpkin spice brake fluid.
Pumpkin
I've seen
spice
it before.
brake fluid is just, as I said, what greater evil could there be?
Apocalyptic scenario.
It is an apocalyptic
All that'll
scenario.
remain is cockroaches, zombies, and pumpkin spice.
Let me ask you a question. What was Ichabod Crane afraid of? He was afraid of the headless horseman. And what was on top of the headless horseman's shoulders?
Pumpkin.
It was a pumpkin. I'm telling you. And when I was a little kid watching Disney, seeing that on whenever it was in October, that was absolutely terrifying. Far more terrifying than the dragon in Sleeping Beauty.
Yep.
Far more terrifying than that. It still gives me nightmares. And so yes,
Jack Skellington, he's got a pumpkin for a head.
No,
too.
he doesn't.
Doesn't he?
No,
What is it?
it's a skeleton head.
Yeah.
Well, who's got the?
No
Pumpkin head?
Yeah.
Pumpkin head.
no, it's the headless horseman.
Yeah.
He's got a pumpkin head.
Jack Skellington is just a skeleton, like a skeleton.
That's true.
Well, I'm gonna have to believe you, but I'm still gonna look it up.
Does Zero have a pumpkin for a nose?
Did
I don't know.
this skeleton head fellow? Did Washington Irving write about him? Is that? I mean, are we talking about something that's
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton.
Oh
Tim
gosh,
Burton. Oh, okay. Yep.
yawn.
It could be a pumpkin skull. Maybe that's what a jack-o'-lantern skull would look like.
That's
I think you're fishing, Ryan.
that
I love
is
you.
though.
I love you, Ryan, but I
was
think
like-
you're fishing.
Paul is right though. That's where the what's it called? Sleepy Hollow, is that?
Yeah, Legend of Sleepy
Legend
Hollow.
of Sleepy Hollow.
Yep.
And the pumpkin for the head, the
Yep.
jack-o'-lantern.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Terrifying.
Washington Irving, a great author, and I might add, this shows some of the sinisterness of how the artists at Disney portrayed this stuff. It would scare the pants off little kids, and I have nightmares still about that 60-some years later. Thanks, Walt. But I own all your stuff. I've made you rich.
Take
Don't
all
worry.
my money.
You're taking all the money, man. Absolutely. I got all the DVDs. I do. I truly do. And respect your copyright there. So
Well, in February
great.
we went to Disney World, and one of my favorite rides in the Magic Kingdom is Haunted Mansion. I remember going and being on that ride when I was a kid in Disneyland, 11 years old. Did it this time around in my 40s.
yeah.
It's not the same.
It's not nearly the same. It's not nearly as scary, except it kept like glitching. You ever been on a Disney ride that glitches?
I
No.
was on.
Universal Studios, but not Disney.
Just
No.
I've never seen it. It
I
just
think it was Pirates
stopped
of the
running.
Caribbean in Disneyland. Like glitched for a little bit, and then we just sat in the dark for like maybe 30 seconds.
Oh wow, an eternity.
Well, Haunted Mansion, it broke down 4 times.
Wow.
So we stood in line for an hour and a half, and then the ride itself should only take like 4 minutes, and it took 20 minutes or something
Wow.
like that. But it's not. It kind of ruined the
The magic.
because it's like, oh, well, that ghost just disappeared.
Yeah. Well, the ride that left a terrible impression upon my children, particularly young Ian, he barely was old enough and tall enough to go on it, was the Tower of Terror.
Oh, man.
Absolutely not. Will not do it.
I didn't go on that one. I wanted to, but I did not.
Oh, let me put it to you like
I
this.
took the express elevator.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. Ian's eyes were as wide as saucer. He was 4, and he said, "I survived the Tower of Terror. I survived the Tower of Terror. I survived the Tower of Terror." Yeah.
I am convinced the Tower of Terror is the reason why I had a pinched nerve in my neck for 4 months. Because as it was going on, I enjoyed walking around and seeing all that stuff, but the falling and yanking, it jerks you back up and down. It wasn't fun. I was just going, ow, ow, ow. Ow.
Well, let's get back to the most important topic.
Exactly.
Pumpkin spice,
No, we're going to
Missing
move.
Sarah DeYoung and pumpkin spice.
Well, as I said, this is a problem in America today, and because they're turning it into everything. I mean, goodness gracious sakes alive.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you'll have pastors preaching on pumpkin spice this and preaching a heresy about pumpkin spice.
Sure.
They will.
You're still working on your sermon for Sunday, aren't you?
Yeah, really. And if the word pumpkin spice should appear in my sermon on Sunday, then you'll know that it's an imposter.
Watch out for the flying pigs.
Exactly.
Well, you know what? That's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is really we want to celebrate you a little bit, brother.
Dang, celebrate. What's that?
So I have a couple questions I want to ask you, and this is kind of getting to know Paul Cross. How many years have you been a pastor?
I was ordained the 25th of June, 1989. Now, Pastor Lura, who prides himself as being very Augustana-oriented and very much sort of an aficionado of the Augsburg Confession and all that sort of stuff.
This is most certainly true.
He was not ordained on a day as auspicious as a Lutheran pastor as I was. I was ordained on the anniversary of the presentation of the Augsburg Confession, which is June 25th, just to let you know that.
I am very impressed.
In case you didn't know. So if ever there was an appropriate, not Reformation Sunday, friends, no. The presentation of the Augsburg Confession, that is a truly auspicious occasion to be ordained as Lutheran. That was 1989. If you do your maths, that is 3 years and 2 months, 33 years and 2 months ago. So
33 years
33
and
years.
2 months.
Yeah.
So
And that was my second career, too. So I've been doing it for a while.
So but prior to that,
Yes.
prior to Call to Ministry, what was your career?
I worked in the automobile repair industry. I worked for both in body shops. I worked in insurance companies dealing with crash repair of cars, and something of which Dana's mother knows something about. She's
A little bit.
Yes, indeed. So I did that for about 10 years. Also, in that time, I worked primarily at a Buick shop, and I did both body side and mechanical side. I started out as an apprentice transmission mechanic.
Wow.
And so I really liked that, but there was no room for me there because the transmission mechanics that we had, it was not going anywhere.
Sure.
I think he resented the notion that he had to train me. I really do. I think he really resented the fact that he had to train me because there was another transmission mechanic in the stall right next to him who was just always gone. He was never there. And so I would use his stall as and basically learn from this other fellow. But, it was kind of, why did the boss bring this young punk on board to ultimately take my job? I never did take his job. But
I dare say that there is probably a long list of careers that would have been much better than rebuilding transmissions.
The funny thing is that there's some that are worse that I did, and one of which was being a claims adjuster for insurance company. That qualifies as much worse. I preached a sermon on hell not long ago, and I don't know about the various levels of hell that are mentioned in Dante's Inferno and so forth like that. But being a claims adjuster for an insurance company, it has to be one of them. There really is, as I said. There's just I don't know many happy claims adjusters. I'm sorry, your mom might be one day, and I'm not sure. But I'm not trying to get her in trouble. But it's a unsatisfactory position because people are not happy hardly at all.
I mean, my mom's been doing it for like 15 years,
Yeah, I
so
know.
it must be somewhat okay.
Well, she's good at it. I mean, obviously, it's a skill position. You need to have a lot of understanding of cars. You need a lot of understanding of people. You got a lot of understanding of procedures and so forth. So yeah, I don't disrespect anybody that does it. It's just not pleasant work.
You want to know how like awful humanity is and
Yes.
how dumb humanity is?
Yes.
Be a claims adjuster.
Be a claims adjuster. That's
Find out
true.
why people hit a deer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but absolutely. There's some amazing things but no, as far as overhauling transmissions, I had the guy whose apprentice I was, he was very good at it, and I learned how to overhaul automatic transmissions, which for most mechanics is somewhat of a mystery. But Jack was able to help me understand the workings of it, how they all put together, and so forth. And so I wasn't bad at it. It was a different time, and so they're not like they are now. I mean, they're a whole different beasts now. But
now you plug in a computer, don't you? And it
you
does all the diagnostics for you.
need computers and stuff like that. I'd be lost. I wouldn't know. As I've said before many times, you would far rather me baptize your child than try to fix your car. Don't ask.
Well,
don't ask. Unless your car is a '72 Buick LeSabre, don't ask.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a fine window that you're the man to go to.
Yeah, as I said, if Buicks from, say, about I can even go back in the 50s a little bit, not too far into the 50s, but from, say, 63 to about 85, I'm pretty fluent in Buick.
Are there a lot of classic Buicks in that time that people want to restore?
Oh, let me tell you something. The most beautiful American car was I owned one. It was and I'm a Ford guy. Everybody knows I'm a Ford guy, but I owned some pretty cool Buicks. I had a 1965 Buick Riviera Grand Sport. It would pass everything but a gas station. It was a 425 cubic inch nail head, as they called them back then. But it just an absolutely beautiful car, the most beautiful American-made car ever.
Cool.
Not a Lamborghini Mara S, but or Miura, excuse me. Pardon me, all the purists out there. But not that. That which is, of course, the absolute most beautiful car ever made. But the Buick Riviera Grand Sport, the 1971 and 72 Buick Riviera Boat Tail. Really cool car. The folks that like to slam them and make them go low and put hydraulics in, that's definitely a high art for a low rider. I mean, as I said, people make that and or throwing dubs on that thing. That people out of that, you'll see a lot of them with dubs thrown on them. The 73 has that horrible railroad tie bumper on the front. It looks horrible, but the back still looks nice. Very nice looking back. A 69, 70, 71, 72 Buick Grand Sport. I had one of those convertible. Man, I wish I had that car. The Buicks that I had, if I had now, I'd be wealthy selling them. The Grand Sport 455, just mountains of torque. From the factory, 510 foot-pounds of torque. Oh. For those of you who like drag racing, I don't know if anybody who listens to the show like the Buick Grand Sport of that era was the A stock Eliminator. It just was a crushing drag racing car with 410 foot-pounds of torque from the factory, and I would have killed myself in that car had I kept it because it was just obscenely quick and obscenely fast. And then I had a 73 Deuce and a Quarter Electra 225. It was a two-door. I looked good in that. I did. It was big. It was massive. I mean, that thing was huge. I had a 65 Wildcat. Trying to think of what other Buicks I had. That might be the list. But yes, there was some great Buicks in that time. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, when you got ordained for ministry, what was the first church you served?
The first church I served was Resurrection Lutheran Church in Weirton, West Virginia, a steel mill town, noted for being in two movies, The Deer Hunter, a rather grim movie, and the homage science fiction horror film Super 8.
Sure.
Weirton was in that. As a matter of fact, my parsonage was in that movie, filmed in that movie.
Oh, really?
So it was kind of funny to see that, yeah. But I was not there very long. struggling congregation. Really, no business being in business. Didn't really have a mission other than it was a chaplaincy to about 4 extended families is really what it was.
Oh, sure.
And there was another Lutheran church in town, oddly enough, pastored by a guy who was a year behind me in high school. So he was from my same high school. So that was kind of curious. What same church I went to, same Bible study I went to when I was a young adult. So
well, and your first call would have been in the newly formed Evangelical Lutheran Church in America,
and they would say it that way too.
Yes, they would.
They would say evangelical to distinguish from people who are not evangelicals, and you would always say Gettysburg instead of Gettysburg. It just drive me nuts.
Just silly little things.
Just silly little things about that organization. Yes, as a matter of fact, I was among the very, very first ordained into that organization because it had just formed in April of that year, and I was ordained 2 months later. So I don't know if that's a sign of anything, but can't condemn you for what you don't say.
So when you were ordained, just as kind of a little side thing, was it from a local parish pastor or was it from a bishop?
No. I was the pastor of my home congregation. It was at my home congregation, and Pastor Bartell was there, and but the bishop, L. Alexander Black was his name. He was present and did the ordination, and so it was much in the interest of apostolic succession, the whole episcopate, the historic episcopate. Very much, he was kind of that way, and that was kind of his deal, and so that's okay. It doesn't matter to me, but yes, reference a mutual professor of ours. Yes, I have the blue gas.
You have the blue gas, which is nice.
It is,
so you got that going for you.
I do have that going for me. And here's the thing about that is that, whether I care about it or not is immaterial, is because I've been ontologically changed by the blue gas. So it doesn't matter what I think. So I have it. And
and how tall are you?
I was 6'1", but I'm getting old, and I think I'm down to just a smidgen under 6 foot.
But prior to getting the blue gas, you were what, like 5'10", 5'9"?
If I was that, maybe,
Dana, do you have any idea what we're talking about?
I have spent the last 20 minutes just going,
Speaking,
I'm gonna need references.
Yeah, well, the historic episcopate is the idea that you got ordained by the guy who got ordained, by the guy who got ordained, by the guy who got ordained, all the way back to Peter. And there's certain organizations, certain churches that believe that that's important. And in order to have fellowship with one of those organizations, which was, I believe, the Episcopal Church USA, who believed in that perspective. The group of Lutherans that I was a part of pretty much said, you got to do this. And there are people who thought that was selling their souls and so forth. I was not among them. I could go either way. I really could. As I said, this was not the end of the world for me. But there are those who it was definitely the end of the world for, and they were going to say, we don't like this. Frankly, the organization of which I'm affiliated now was filled with people who this was the end of the world for them, and they weren't going to go any further. So for me to say that out loud, I can say that out loud now that, gosh, I'm retiring, and so what's it matter?
I dare you to try to fire me or defrock me or whatever.
I've been daring them to try to do it there because it requires 2 Sundays notice and a letter sent to the congregation and a 67% majority. And I said, as long as Rhonda, Ian, and I are at the meeting, I don't have to worry. So I've done the math.
Is on my side.
The math's on my side. Yeah.
No matter what.
No matter what. Well, not no matter what. There are certain things that I'm sure Ian and Rhonda would vote against me. So there are certain things.
It's interesting that you speak about that, though, because, yes, when it became a have to, that's when LCMC was born.
Absolutely.
But prior to that, people were in historic succession through the Swedish Lutheran Church, I believe correctly.
Which was one of the churches I served. I served formerly Augustana Synod Church, which that was their polity forever. Never not their polity.
Yeah.
So, and Redeemer, the church I served, was pretty evangelical and pretty pietistic and pretty all that, but they were also pretty proud of their Augustana Synod heritage.
They're Augustana bona fides.
They were. They were very proud of that. Yeah. And so it's kind of funny because, as I said, on the one hand, if the sort of the more, ALC type people who were in the same crowd about things with regard to the Word of God and all sorts of things, that made them a little bit uncomfortable because that wasn't the deal there. I mean, that's your own issue. It's not ours.
Right.
So,
right.
But if you want to get wrapped around the axle with that one, knock yourself out.
So after serving in West Virginia for a bit, where did you go from there?
I went to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Fridley, Minnesota. It was really my first love in ministry. I did my internship there. They wanted me to stay on, but I figured I don't need to do that. And they finally asked me to come back, and I said, sure, okay, I'll do that. And I was there for 7 years, and it was a lot of fun. It was a blast. I got to be the today people talk about discipleship pastors or teaching pastors. We didn't use language like that then. I was the pastor of mayhem and nonsense. So that was my official title. And believe me, we had a lot of that. It was Camelot. Let me just say that. We had a great staff, a great team. Pastor Hermeyer was an amazing senior pastor. After him came Pastor Dave Glesney. He was a great senior pastor. Really loved Dave. He's fantastic. So we had and lifelong friends. I think look back at those people who were on staff with me in that time, and I just love them. And every now and then we'll get back together. I think being at Redeemer prepared me to be the senior pastor here at Atonement because they're very similar congregations in some respects, and very, very similar. And so I kind of, when I showed up here, even though things were not necessarily where everybody wanted them to be, I said, well, I know where all the chairs go in this place. I know I know how to fill them. I know where all the things because I've seen it work before, and I know how to make this thing work. Yeah. As I said, it's like coming across somebody who had taken the pan off a turbohydromatic 400 and taken the valve body off, and they didn't know how to put it back together. And I think, gosh, what am I going to do? It says, is it automatic transmission? I'm terrified. Well, I've done this before. I know how to put that. And so put the little ball there that goes there, a little spring goes there, put that there, get the little gasket that goes there, scrape off that thing, then make that flat, make it nice and shiny, put that back on, take the transmission filter, get a new filter, scrape off the gasket, and put it back and put the amount of fluid. And we're done. We're ready to go. Come on, let's hit the throttle. Let's have some fun with this thing. It's behind a 455 with 510 foot-pounds of torque. Let's go. It wasn't meant to sit in your garage and look pretty. Let's move this thing. So that's kind of what it was. That's the best metaphor that I can use for coming to Atonement was because I'd been at Redeemer.
Now, if anyone thinks that Lutheran pastors have a problem with speaking in tongues, I want you to rewind that and listen to that again.
Well, there might be somebody out there who understands what I just said. But
you need an interpreter for tongues.
But
also.
Let me put it to you like this: they would know exactly. He says, "Yep, that's exactly how it works." Yeah. So but we had a great time. We had just amazing times, and we did some great stuff at Redeemer, and I just love that. And so that was just that was kind of a sweet spot. 3 of our 4 kids were born while we were at Redeemer. Mm-hmm. 1 on internship, 2 while we were there. And the other one was born in West Virginia. So actually he was born in Pittsburgh, but who's to say what we're, So, nevertheless, so it was an amazing time. As I said, our kids loved it there. It was just, it was the kingdom of God on earth at the time. Yeah.
Now, was it that time, because you'd been in the Midwest after seminary?
Yep.
A chunk.
Yep.
Were you fully Midwesternized by that point?
Well, you need to sense it. Most people, they just think I'm from the godless, atheistic East, and they're
not wrong.
DJ. No, I want you to understand something. My grandfather is a hardcore Midwestern. I mean, he's from Iowa, and then went to the North Woods of Minnesota, carved out of the North Woods of Minnesota, a resort out there. My mother is from Minnesota and so forth. So then on the other hand, the sainted Mrs. Cross, her father is from Viroqua, Wisconsin, where you are either Norwegian or unemployed. And the appropriate, you need to go there, Dana. You need to go there and find out. I'm not lying. Actually, it has changed. There's been kind of an infestation of sort of free thinkers that have taken over Viroqua in many ways, but I don't know. But it's a pretty place. I like Viroqua. I shouldn't say infestation of free thinkers. I looked at online the other day and I came across a bookstore. I thought I'd like to go to that bookstore. I think I'd get along pretty well with this guy because he's got books. I mean, he turned an old tobacco warehouse into a bookstore. And I thought, man, that's cool. Anyway, So DJ, in spite of your sort of insinuation to the contrary, I do have street cred with the Midwest. So yes.
What I was getting at is, yes, I know you have roots, but when you live in a place for so long and grow up there,
you mean the godless atheistic East?
Yes, I have two daughters that when they started to transform verbally into saying things like "forget about it," and "gabish."
That's right. They spent time in Philadelphia.
Yes, they did.
Oh my goodness!
At that point, it was when Addie came home and said, "Guess what? We're learning Thanksgiving. What's that? That we're gonna eat toiki." I'm like, "Pack up your bags. Yous guys gotta go."
Oh, gosh.
So we went down south to get better accents.
And then Dylan got a southern accent.
Yes. Dylan got a southern accent. That's right.
That's great.
So after Redeemer, where did you go?
After Redeemer, I was awarded a doctoral fellowship at Asbury Theological Seminary in Wilmore, Kentucky. And that was a pretty cool thing. As I said, it was a full doctoral fellowship. They paid for me to live. They provided us with a townhouse. They did all that sort of stuff.
That's
and
great.
So I worked on a doctoral fellowship. It was the emphasis of the Beeson Center, which was the unit of Asbury that I was a part of at that time, was on church leadership and biblical preaching, and I focused on biblical preaching. So, but I still took classes in church leadership. Again, another one of those cool experiences where the people who I went, the cohort that, because this was, you leave your parish, you don't hang on, you don't do anything else. Your spouse comes with you, and he or she, and we had both spouse types there, and pardon me for being binary, but no.
Both types.
Both types. Well, we did. There were a couple of husbands there because with female pastors and a couple of male pastors and so forth. It was, but they were expected not to work. Basically, you put your whole time in. It was an amazing experience in terms of what we got to do and the field trips we got to take to churches globally, and did that and. Had a blast. I still have interaction with the people that I went through that program with. That was 25 years ago, and that was amazing. I just loved that.
How long were you there?
That was a year-long residency, followed by, we'll pay for 2 years of your dissertation time, so you better get busy.
Wow.
And because I'm sort of I channel my parents' tight-fisted Germanness occasionally, I decided to get it done in 2 years, so 3 years total. So, yeah, hit the throttle. Got no ABD for me. For those of you who don't know what ABD means, it means all but dissertation.
Right.
I decided that I wanted to get that thing done, so we got the dissertation done.
Sure done.
Yes, it had to do with, you're going to love this one, homiletical pedagogy among the
I love it.
Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.
Could I get a copy of that?
Wow.
I don't know what those words are.
Homiletical having to do with preaching or sermons. Pedagogy having to do with teaching or showing someone how to do something. And Evangelical Lutheran Church, well, I'll let you to interpret that yourself. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So then after that,
I was homeless, unemployed, living in my mother-in-law's basement, sleeping on a daybed for about a year. that was one of the lowest points in my life, in my ministry. I kind of didn't know what was going to happen to me. I had turned down a call immediately following my completion of the residency, and didn't know the odyssey that I was going to be going on. But I wasn't a bad daybed. I mean, I mean, you know, as we saying it like that, it sounds so terrible. But I mean, she lived in a nice home. But as I said, we did live in the basement. We did sleep in a daybed. I had no home, and I was unemployed for almost a year, trying to. I used the time to write my dissertation, so I was fortunate in that regard. But it was an interesting time. It shaped me a lot more than I thought it would, and it helped me recognize God's in charge. I'm not, and I didn't miss any meals, and that was good. My kids got an opportunity to be with the three remaining grandparents that they had for a season, which they didn't. One of the challenges of being a pastor that is more itinerant, like I've had itinerant ministry, is that your kids don't have the same sort of advantages of being close to family that others do. And so the idea, because my dad was in the Air Force, and so the idea of being close to family, that's just didn't enter into the equation ever. And the same is true for my kids, my ministry's been far more itinerant than many people's. And so my kids didn't get a chance to be around Grandma and Grandpa much. And so that year they were able to do that. So that was a real blessing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And I got my dissertation written too. So that was even better yet.
And then after that, St. Mary Magdalene?
The Basilica of St. Mary Magdalene. Yes, absolutely.
Famed.
Or as I'm fond of calling it, the St. Mary Magdalene Lutheran Church Victory Center. Yeah, absolutely. If you kind of run in the Pentecostal circles, you got to have a victory center. And I had a lot of friends you just got to have a victory center. And so I called, because if you saw the building, it did not look like a victory center. Nor did it look like a basilica either. Let's just be kidding. But anybody, there was a lot of controversy with regard to the name St. Mary Magdalene Lutheran Church. The people that named it that were very proud of it. They loved it, and I, certainly, that was their prerogative. Mm-hmm. However, as the next pastor in, I came to realize it was a pretty tough thing in terms of evangelism, because the fact of the matter is it's a massive theological non sequitur. I understand the whole reasoning behind it. I understand the thoughts behind it. God bless them. I appreciate that. No aspersions on that. But from a very pragmatic perspective, it just doesn't work. People immediately see St. Mary and they think it's either a Catholic church or a hospital, and then they saw the building and they said it's neither of those things. It's neither of those things. So that was unfortunate. And again, there were some stressful things with regard to that, and some conflict with regard to that, and because I tried changing the name, and there was more conflict with regard to that. But I was there for 11 years. That was fun. That was the longest time. It was not what I expected, but another good thing that happened to me there was for my family. Even though two amazing things happened to me there. I got some great friends. 3 amazing things. Got some really good friends there. Also, the kind of typical things that you run into in a typical suburban Lutheran church. You run into that because you're just in the Twin Cities. Well, as I'm fond of saying, that Minnesota is the place where Lutherans are most dense, and no place are they more dense than in the Twin Cities.
Yes.
Oh! Do you think I meant something else? There's a lot of them there, DJ. Was there something else?
No. I figured you meant quantity.
Quantity, yes, absolutely.
Not quality.
Not that sort of density. I take credit. Ryan, you're talking about things made up. I still take credit for that joke. I really do. I am the founder of that joke. Some people take great offense at it. That makes it even a better joke.
Trying to remember my Twin Cities. the way things are laid out. Savage is near Minnetonka.
No, Savage is south of the river. It's near Burnsville.
But it's a nice suburb. It's not it's not an inner ring suburb, right?
Savage is has two parts to Savage. Is above the bluff and below the bluff. Below the bluff is the old river town and railroad town of Savage, and it's just an old river and railroad town.
Yep.
And it's where M.W. Savage had the great racehorse, the Great Dan Patch. And there's a movie about that, Dana. You should see it. Was done in 1944. In
sure, she's going to run right out to
in black and white.
Gonna write it down.
Oh yeah, you.
go to I Take Two video.
I just saw. I think it was on. Where did I see it? I think it was on HBO Max that I saw it streaming. I think that's where I saw it, and I actually watched it, and it was really bad. I mean, even by standards of those, I mean, this was just. It was so cornball. It wasn't funny. It was painfully cornball. But in any case, I mean, you don't denigrate Dan Patch in Savage, Minnesota, because they have Dan Patch days and this, that, and the other thing. But no, it's and then above the bluff is the land of McMansions.
Sure.
The new young successful young people with 5,000 square foot homes on quarter-acre lots, and that sort of stuff, yeah.
And DJ, did you mean inside or outside of the interstate loop? Is that what you were trying to ask?
I don't remember what
it's outside.
There's this whole thing about older suburbs or the inner ring that are just around the periphery of Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Right. We're not. Sure. We're below. We're called south of the river.
Okay.
South of the river. That's what. Yeah.
I know I've been there. I just the brain gets foggy after a while.
But it was also there that I was able to because. I mean, it was an interesting place, but the expectations weren't real high. But I was able to teach at the Masters Institute. So I did that. That's kind of where I got to be a part of the ground floor of something new with the Masters Institute, kind of an alternative seminary cooked up in the mind of Paul Anderson. And the Masters Institute, of all the things that have, boy, I tell you, it's got traction. We've got 9 new students at the Masters Institute this year, so that's pretty impressive.
That's very good.
Particularly for the type of seminary that it is, and so we're really excited about that. And I'm kind of back to teaching there again, not to the degree I was then, but more so than I have been in the past. So that's going to be fun. And that I got to do that then, and I got to meet a lot of people, and I got to have lots and lots and lots of interns there. I had 12 interns, I think, there. And
well, that was the next question I wanted to ask you. So had all of your interns been at Mary Magdalene?
No. I had 4 at Redeemer in Fridley, and then a bunch at Mary Magdalene, and then 2 at Seguin, and then the one that got away. Absolutely. I have been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. When I came to you, I was but a learner. Now I am the master. And you know who you are. That's funny. And I've also had 2 others here in addition to that. Not in a more formal sense of that, but in a more loose sense of internship thing.
Well, and it seems like that's been, of all the different things that you've done in ministry, that is one that I see you can really see your fingerprints throughout the wider church, not just here. Because is that 19?
I believe so. It's not 19, 20. The end ones don't clearly, as I said, they're not quite the same. But at least that, I've had some really. I've been blessed to be able to sow into the lives of other people's ministry. Dale Galloway reminded us when we were in the Beeson program at Asbury Seminary that basically a good pastor doesn't do the work of 10 people, but gets 10 people to do the work of 10 people. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is that somebody's got to sow into the lives of people who are starting out. I had an amazing experience, although it was somewhat of a conflict experience with my experience as being an apprentice mechanic. It shaped me. It formed me. Jack did a great job, even in spite of the fact that he just said, "Why do I want to do this?" But he did teach me a lot. He taught me more about people than he did about transmissions. To which I'm very grateful for Jack. Jack was one of the greatest generation. He was one of those late World War II people, and he even drove around in a Willis Jeep. It was great. I loved that. Yeah, I mean a surplus Willis Jeep, not like a Chrysler Willis Jeep or an American Motors Willis Jeep. I mean a real honest to goodness surplus one. He had one of those, and it was just something. It was fun. He would drive that all the time. But he taught me a lot. That's what you got to do. You got to sow into people's lives. Pastor Hermeyer, my internship supervisor, he taught me that you got to sow into people's lives. And so that kind of clicked with me, and I thought, well, I want to provide interns with the best possible internship they can have. And that's kind of been my purpose statement that I would tell the interns when they started. I says, you are going to have the best internship experience you could possibly have. If you don't, it's my fault. Mm-hmm. Because I haven't done what I've needed to do to make sure that you have that great experience about learning of that year of internship. Lcmc doesn't do internship quite the same way anymore, so it makes it a little bit more challenging. But I still love that. If I could do that for the rest of my life, I'd still do that for the rest of my life. Yeah.
So if you want to see the as DJ, you were talking about the fingerprints, if you're out there and you want to see something, well, you probably won't see it anymore, but go to an LCMC annual gathering. If you're with Pastor Paul Cross, you don't have to walk around to talk to people. They'll come to you.
Yeah, that's right.
What was the comment you made about the dense indentations in the walls and the hallways at Upper Arlington? Clear a path.
It's Paul.
Sarah was with us then, wasn't she, or was it you?
It was Jen.
Jen, that's right.
Yep, Jen
it kind of annoyed Jen. As I said, Jen was just a little annoyed by this because this guy, there's nothing special about him. What are you doing? He says, unwise young man.
Yeah, they were putting holes in the drywall trying to move out of the way for Paul to come through.
I'm sure there was some genuflection going on.
You know Paul Cross? Oh, but I do.
Ryan's building his street cred off of Paul's name.
Well, I had a good friend of mine that a long time ago. Todd once said to me, he said, "Paul, you'll not ever pastor one of the largest churches in our field. You're just not. But boy, you have people, and I have minions. They're referred to as minions, and they all are very respectful. And But I joke that one day I'll call upon them for a favor. They get the access. As a matter of fact, one of them texted me today. She asked after this was neat. She said after Sunday is the 1-800 Ask Paul hotline still operational? To which I said yes, it is. Yes, but so
there's not going to be a charge,
right?
Yes, it's going to. No, I don't want to say it's one of those 900 numbers because that's a very seedy.
So after your time in Savage, you went to Seguin for a time.
Well, yes, I went to. Well, no, in between there was one interim in Menominee, Wisconsin, and I love Menominee, Wisconsin. It's in a land called the Driftless, I think is what that's called, and it's this beautiful, beautiful part of the country. I just think it's gorgeous. But I always thought Menominee was interestingly named. It's a college town, and it says "me no money." So I'm thinking, yeah, most of the people leaving there, that's pretty true. Later on, our daughter would go to University of Wisconsin Stout, and I saw a great way for her to make money there, but she didn't want to do this. She was in the fashion design program there, and you go to Parents' Day, and you get like Concordia Dad or Cobber Dad or Bison Dad or Bison Mom. And I thought, well, because this would have been a way to make money. I mean, the parents wouldn't have bought these T-shirts, but the kids would have definitely bought them for their parents. Like, how about this one? Stout Mom.
Yes.
I I think it's a great idea. It's $1 million idea. I'm giving it away. My daughter didn't like the idea either. She thought this is bad.
It never got legs.
It never got legs, as I said, but it's hilarious. I think, stout mom.
Oh man.
Well,
Their marketing department sat for a very long time on that.
every time I hear the name of the town,
Yes.
I think of that
Do you think of the
Menominee.
Because that's where I would.
Menominee. Do.
Everybody does. That's pretty good. That's true. But it's a great little town. I like it. And I served a church there, New Life Lutheran, NALC church. I was interim there. So I did enjoy that. I had a blast. And then when they had a farewell for me, somebody, he was he had a herd of beef cattle, a special herd. I don't know what the special kind of name, but he got me a 2-pound porterhouse. Was one of the going away gift. Oh man, bless God, I can still taste that. Oh my, oh bless me. Tell me about John. Oh, goodness gracious, that was a piece of cow, man. That was a dead piece of cow. Holy cow, that was good. Holy cow. And then we went to Seguin. Now Seguin's a funny place because first of all, if you see the word in print, you have no concept of how to pronounce it. It's just Seguin, Seguin or something like that.
Seguin.
It's Seguin, named after Juan Seguin, who was a Tejano patriot. And nevertheless, I'd lived there before when my dad was in the Air Force. As a little kid, so I knew, not only did I know where it was, but I knew how to pronounce it, which stunned the call committee.
That was an advantage.
That was absolutely.
They're like, he knows how to say it. He's hired.
He's one of us. He's in, and it was an interesting place, as I said. My two older kids didn't. My two younger kids were still in high school. They wanted to stay put. They didn't want to transfer high schools, and so we had a commuter marriage. Rhonda would fly down every other week, and
I was going to say that was probably a tough time in family.
It was a
family life.
Very hard time in family life. Absolutely, because we were separated for 3 years, and and that's not fun. Because sometimes it wasn't every 2 weeks. Sometimes it'd be as much as 6 weeks, and didn't see the kids. So that was also it was hardest on them, I think. But it was good stuff, though. Nevertheless, I met some fine people there. The Texans know how to eat, and boy, man, when I want to tell you something, God bless. And I defy. Here's a plate of ground fish laced with poison, and it looks like ghost Jello, and here is a breakfast taco.
It's true.
Made with brisket, fresh brisket that just off the smokehouse, which is out back. What you going to pick?
Right.
I mean, as I
Wouldn't
said,
you like some of this fish Jello?
Jello? Yeah. Sorry. As I said, I'm going with the breakfast tacos.
We'll put melted butter on it.
Yeah, it's okay. You go right ahead.
And that's all you get. Just the melted butter.
It comes with a clothespin.
I'll put hot sauce on the breakfast taco. I'm telling you, they actually had a smokehouse behind the church, and it was huge, and it was amazing. Yeah, it was really great.
If you like cooked cow,
if you like dead cow, man, this is the place to be. I mean, gosh, if you're one of those horrible people, having cows, that their flatus destroys the ozone or something like that.
You're doing your part. You're getting rid of them.
Yep.
So as much as you can.
Exactly. Well, adding to the flatus, is that what I'm doing?
So then it was.
Notice how they changed it up real quick here.
Then it was back north.
Then back up here. Yes, I came to Atonement Lutheran in February. God said leave Texas, and I did. And
in February.
Well, I left actually in January and came here February.
Took till February for him to get here.
Yeah, exactly. Really.
By the time he thought it was. So
yeah, and then I came to Atonement. Yeah, that's the story right there.
There it is.
There it is.
And you've served as senior pastor at Atonement for 7 years.
That's correct. Yeah. I started out on the 8th of February, and today is the 28th is going to be my final Sunday, which interestingly enough is the 68th anniversary of my baptism. DJ,
Wow.
You see,
It all comes together for you, Paul.
It
It just
see,
it's written in the stars.
it is, and it just kind of gets under your skin, doesn't it, DJ? that in spite of my Philippist tendencies, and in spite of my alleged syncretism, in spite of my crypto Calvinistic ideas, in spite of my pietism, I really have my Lutheran Union card right down.
You know, I think the fact of the matter is, secretly, outside of anyone's awareness, you're really a Gymnasio Lutheran. Deep down.
No, none of them would ever admit that. They would. There's a line saying, "This is false." This is most certainly not true.
Right? How do you? Wrong.
Wrong. Wrong.
Oh, John McLaughlin. More wrong.
Well, there's the backstory.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, the 28th, which if everything comes together is today.
Oh yeah.
This is your last Sunday as senior pastor at Atonement Lutheran Church.
Correct.
Or maybe anywhere, who knows?
It's true.
What is in the windshield? We just spent a lot of time in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
What is in the windshield for Paul Cross?
I don't know. Thanks for asking, Ryan. I do. I don't know.
You've been to all 50 states.
I've just now been to my 50th. I've been to all 50 states.
Where are you at with your national parks?
National parks. I'm at 40 national parks. So there's 63 or 4, and so I've got 20 some left. The tough ones are the ones that are left, like Gates of the Arctic. The toughest one, though, is probably going to be not tough but expensive. Is the one in American Samoa? That's a hard, because you got to fly there, and they've been particularly careful about the whole COVID thing, not letting folks back in. But that'd be a fun one. That'd be pretty. You talk about South Pacific, that'd be beautiful. Then another, Dry Tortuga is another one that you have to take a plane or a boat plane or a boat to. We're going to try to get that one next year. That's in the everybody thinks Key West is the most remote key. That's not true. It's Dry Tortuga. I mean, it's way out there. You're not building a causeway to that, and at least not a cheap one. Although you did build a antebellum Civil War fort out there, Fort Jefferson's there. Then let's see here, other ones that are kind of tough to get to. The ones in Alaska are particularly challenging. You have to fly into them, the ones that have not been there. There's a couple in West Texas, Guadalupe Mountains, Big Bend, Carlsbad Caverns, famous right now. Lately, as we've been talking, there's flooding going on there. White Sands, New Mexico. Looking forward to that. By the way, New Mexico is a part of the United States. Oh gosh, both my brothers were born in New Mexico, and the pain that they've gone through to try to explain. Yes, New Mexico is a part of America, the United States, and actually has been for a very long time.
In the movie Young Guns, they referred to New Mexico and Old Mexico.
Old Mexico, yeah.
Yes.
Old Mexico.
Okay, there you go. So I suppose I'll teach some still. I've got 3 teaching things lined up yet, and possibly a 4th. But I don't know. Let me put it like this. If you want to understand me in retirement, you need to see the first scene of the first episode of the first season of Star Trek Picard.
Okay.
That's a must. When you see the first scene of the first episode of the first season of Star Trek Picard, you will understand how I feel about retirement.
Sure. Is it similar to Tom Brady?
Is it similar to Tom Brady? You had to get that jab against Lisa there. Lisa's been kind of sort of been nice and pleasant to you lately. You kind of got to kick the hornet's nest again, don't you? Yeah, I suppose. I suppose. But you got. Actually, that whole first season of Star Trek Picard really kind of says it. But that first scene and how the first scene ends, is all. It's what it is. Yeah, and if you see that, you'll say, yeah, that figures.
Yeah.
That figures.
This next question you don't have to answer.
Well, let me throw one in here real quick because I just want a quick answer. Star Trek or Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Star Trek.
Because of its better quality, or because it's so
quality.
iconic?
No, they're so bad. I mean, it's more iconic, and basically what you have is two Shakespearean actors.
Yeah.
Both of those guys are Shakespearean actors, Patrick Stewart and William Shatner. That's what they did before they did this. And so that's what comes through. And so you see one Shakespearean actor trying to be better than the other. And if you want to see them both be really bad, watch Star Trek Generations. That'll show you how bad it can get. I like the supporting cast in the original series, particularly Dr. McCoy. He's just great. I just love his lines are just fantastic. Bless you, Spock, must you always be so damn logical. I'm a doctor, Jim.
He's got it down.
Oh yes, absolutely.
He's seen
DeForest
a few
Kelly.
of them.
Oh, I've seen a few of them. I've seen a few of
Just a
them
little.
repeatedly. Absolutely, and of course you don't need to ask the question about the other star science fiction fantasy
Wars?
Yes, exactly. You don't need to ask that.
We won't bring it up.
We don't need to bring it up.
Science.
Okay,
Science
so
fantasy.
you don't have to answer this question, but anybody who has seen or had a glimpse of notes and things like this, are there any plans for a Pastor Paul Cross pastoral library?
Well, if I can get my son Ian off the dime, or find somebody else who's, if I, shame him. No, he's a great kid. He's got his own life to live. But he talked me into getting a web domain, and I don't know how to put all this stuff together, and I don't know what people would want, and I would have to edit all this stuff tremendously. But I do have a fair amount of notes.
You've got a library.
I do.
There's no doubt about it.
I do. I do. But I've seen people with more. I mean, I have right around, I'd say somewhere a little over 3,000 pages of single space notes and stuff like that. So there's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. But I know a guy who's got 11,000 pages. Wow. And he does have a website. But I do have the web domain name. But I don't know how long I'm going to keep it. But that's the thing. And also keep the daily discovery thing going and alive, and making sure that keeps going, because that's still, that's getting people in the Word of God is my deal. I mean, that's it. Apart from the next generation of Christian leaders, which was the internship thing, that's my big. Those are the two big deals in my life. Getting people in God's Word, to enrich people with God's Word, so they can go out and engage the world for Christ. That's kind of been my lifetime motto. And the other is to provide that godly foundation for the next generation. So those are the two. That's kind of Paul Cross, as simple as it can be.
Sure.
Well, not that you're looking for one, but for a professional legacy, that's about as good as it gets.
I'm really not looking for. I'm going to say I don't want one of those.
No, I know. But it doesn't matter.
My legacy is he walked on pews when he was at this church. He did things that we told our children never to do at home. He said hell 47 times in his last sermon, and my little 8-year-old didn't know what to do.
He had an engine block next to the altar.
He did have an engine block next to the altar and was wearing coveralls.
There was medical equipment.
There was medical equipment. That is what my legacy is going to be, DJ. I have a feature for you. It doesn't have anything to do with anything so pious or righteous as any of that other stuff.
In recent memory, all that stuff will stand, I think, in the long term.
Oh, bless you.
There you go.
Which is, as I said, part of going to Lcmc National Convention with me. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
for that reason.
Yeah.
That was a blast.
Ryan, it's funny that you say that, because my first experience with Paul at an LCMC gathering was when I was in call process to come here.
Okay.
I'd never met Paul before. And I know a lot of people in LCMC, a lot. And my first experience, I remember you came in from your hotel. I came in from my hotel. We met outside and then walked into the main area. And it was like being with a minor celebrity. I was so surprised. And so what does Paul do? He very graciously goes and sits down, and people begin coming to him.
Not a joke.
Like the Godfather. I mean, it was...
Kiss the ring.
DJ, you did not read the fine print in your letter of Paul. There will come a day when I'll need a favor. Believe it or not,
That's what he's doing. He's just collecting.
Recently, I've had to call on that from somebody, from an individual, and he seemed a bit recalcitrant about doing that. He thought I was kidding about recalling that favor, and it seemed a little bit odious to him. And I reminded him of his responsibility.
Yes. Yes. Why do you insult me with this?
On my daughter's wedding day.
Dave.
Oh, man.
No.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I remember a time when you loaned a book to a man and told him if he doesn't bring it back, he's got to bring his firstborn child.
Firstborn child's adorable too. That is one cute little girl, and he's very fortunate to bring. I think his wife sort of made sure that he brought that book back. Because yes, of all,
she's rather fond of the first.
She's rather fond of that child. She and the young lady is quite adorable. She is definitely takes after her mother. There's no question about that.
That's not insulting.
No. Let's just be honest. As I said, if you met the individual, the book borrower in question, you'd say, "Well, I'm not so sure." He has trouble finding himself sometimes, but love the guy. That he knows that I love him.
Oh yeah,
and he is a minion. There's no question about him being a minion. But as I said, I let him know how valuable this book was to me, and he again still.
He knew the score.
He knew. As I said, it's not as if that this was some mystery to him or was unexplained. The sergeant inculcated me in a great virtue of communication. The sergeant always believed that you should communicate in such a way not to be understood, but the sergeant believed that you should communicate in such a way that you cannot be misunderstood.
Yes.
And that was always the case with the sergeant. And so I've tried to do that, and I certainly tried to do that in this case. And still, somehow he felt that I was. Not being serious.
Did you use serious words like Gehenna?
Gehenna, yes, I used words like Gehenna, and I did explain to his wife that soon there would be somebody coming. So the book got back quick. So
That was great.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, I'll tell you what. I think we could keep going for a couple more hours.
Please don't.
It would be so much fun. It would be so much fun. But I think we're at that time.
Yep.
Yeah, we are, and we have been blessed by your presence here. No doubt.
Well, there you
no
go.
doubt about it. Personally, professionally, all of it.
Oh,
It's been phenomenal.
And I've been as well. As I said, this has been a lot of fun. It's been some challenges. There's no question about it. It hasn't all been fun. It's all been there's some Kingdom of God stuff. And anytime there's Kingdom of God stuff, there's opposition, there's conflict, there's all kinds of stuff that goes on with that. And you try to be as humble about it as you possibly can. And you try to remember that it's not about you. It's about God at work in you, and that's what's most important to keep in mind. And God does amazing things through His Son, Jesus Christ. So keeping that in mind, it has been an amazing time. Certainly, I cannot profess perfection by any stretch of the imagination. Certainly cannot express righteousness and everything, but I can express the idea, and it just comes back to me over and over again, those words that we say every Sunday, but we forget. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Forgiveness is so critically important into what we do because we need to ask for it a lot, because sometimes we're not making things the way we should do it, doing things the way we should. So we need to ask for forgiveness all the time. It's important to do that. And also, not only that, be forgiving. Somebody once asked me, what were the values I wish to inculcate into my children? And I said this. I said, I prayed that they live graced lives and that they live gracious lives, that they recognize their need for grace and that they in turn recognize their need to be gracious people in return. So there it is right there.
There it is. That was great.
Yes. Dare I say, awesome. I had that one written down for a long time.
You know, Ryan, God alone is awesome.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Please.
Would anybody like to pray? Otherwise, I will pray us out of here.
I would like Pastor Cross to pray.
Oh, there we go.
Very good.
Finally got someone decent who can do it.
I believe anyone can. Father, we give you thanks and praise for the life lived at the shadow of the cross, the life lived in the hope of the resurrection, the life lived together in community with people that you have called to the cross and called to that same hope of the resurrection. So now, Lord, send your Spirit into our lives that we might continue this glorious message to the next generation and to those generations yet to come. For we ask it in Jesus' name, and we're bold to say, Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Go eat pizza and serve the Lord.
Paul, thank you.
You betcha. Good to be here.
Oh, it was great. All right.
It's a great day in North Dakota.
It is.
Amen.
If you are looking for a place to join us for worship, you can do that every Sunday at 9 and 10:30 a.m. at atonement.live, atonementfargo.org, or on YouTube, where you can also find past Bible studies, services, messages, episodes of that podcast. You can find all of that at Atonement by searching Atonement Fargo. So for Dana Mashevsky, Pastor DJ Lura, and Pastor Paul Cross, I'm Ryan Janke. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next time on another riveting episode. This one is really riveting.
Yes, it was.
Episode of that podcast.